Hello, friends and comrades in the live broadcast room, your favorite 60-minute show about the most important thing we have, of course, is a special episode, just incredible footage. NATO equipment seized in the Special Operations Zone was transported to Moscow, to Poklonaya Gora, and an echelon carrying trophies drove along the Moscow Ring Road carrying a German Leopard and an infantry fighting vehicle to Mordor and a Bradley PRM Wonder 13 infantry fighting vehicle on a military tractor, a special operation vehicle. Swedish C-90 infantry fighting vehicles, even French Max-10 wheeled tanks and other various overseas military items. The trophy equipment exhibition will run throughout May. A total of more than 30 samples produced by 9 North Atlantic Alliance countries, including Britain, France, Sweden, Czech Republic, Finland, and Turkey, will be exhibited. There are trophies from South Africa and even Australia in the battle with Wu, and there are far fewer Ukrainian exhibits, but this is easy to explain that almost all Ukrainian equipment has been demilitarized and fighting boys.
Украинских экспонатов гораздо меньше, но это легко объясняется. Практически вся украинская техника уже демилитаризована и воюют хлопцы, что называется.
As they say on NATO, now urgent news is actually now pouring into news agency tapes with urgent tags. Biden signed a package of laws approved by Congress to aid Ukraine as promised. Right now, you're seeing live footage of Biden in his office. The US president has just announced that military supplies to Ukraine will begin in the coming hours. Everything is ready. Direct quote.
Президент США только что заявил, что в ближайшие часы начнутся военные поставки на Украину. Все готово. Прямая цитата.
In general, in the whole history of mankind, the country has never spent as much money on the army as it has. Well, for example, last year, the German Peace Research Institute put the amount at record levels of 2 trillion and 3 trillion euros. The main reason for this increase in military spending is the war in Ukraine. NATO countries are arming again to prepare for global conflict. Germany sent troops to Poland today for exercises. The goal of preparing for war with the Russians is that so far, the training battle has been held only 80 kilometers from the border with the Kaliningrad region. It may be too hasty to talk about historical memory. For this date, they directly announced that they were preparing to fight our Russian infantry. The transfer of tank units is also being worked out. In general, according to Guderian's will, the war sentiment was absorbed by the Netherlands itself. At the same time, there is too little room for exercise. So the exercise is carried out in Germany as part of the exercise. The Quadriga Light Motorized Brigade of the Dutch Armed Forces conducts combat coordination with the Bundeswehr and simulates the situation of NATO troops gathering near the eastern border of the alliance from Germany. Will Dutch troops go to Lithuania to formally show Putin that they are ready to fight as announced? Latvians are being drawn into war with Russia. Latvia's cabinet today legalized the admission of foreigners to the army. Now, if martial law is imposed in the country, it will be possible to use and hire officials, including Ukrainians. Estonians are also training their troops in a hurry, and now, accompanied by French NATO friends, the Lynx, operating as part of a NATO battalion, will have to react slowly if Estonian territory is attacked. Now she is receiving additional training in the border forest, studying the terrain and practicing high-intensity combat. Another French unit is the crew of the frigate Normandy. I want the art of naval battle off the coast of Norway, the prospect of war with Moscow. Soldiers from all over the world take it seriously, say they will fight, and are ready to fight. The process of destroying Ukraine's arsenal Western equipment is high, and today in the deep rear, a powerful explosion continued in Odessa. Historic missiles arrived, hit a maintenance base and a military unit near the Hambatny Bridge in CO, and a fire was still extinguished. In addition, the local public received information about the ambulance boundary, that is, the patch was very accurate, which is already the result of the arrival of the reserve location in Pokrovsk, which will soon become Krasnoarmesky again. Ukrainian media confirmed the missile attack. Previously, Iskander Metka operated by Aeroflot in the Kherson region. This is the personnel destruction of the opposition in the right bank of the Dnieper River by phage attacks. Another precise airstrike by a winged fauna on the building from the cluster, high in the direction of Seversky. She went on to break through the defense of the Russian army. Avdev, after the liberation of Shekin, our soldiers entered Novopamutov, on which front? As a result, the corridor was expanded and flank cover was provided for the advancing Russian troops. In the transmission, how did you manage to take the blame at Efes Airport today? The 47th Mechanized Brigade, one of the best in the Ukrainian army, trained in NATO, refused to take the blame. It just so happens that our army is just going to hell under the attack. In addition, Russian troops entered the village of Georgievka in the direction of Kamarinsky. And in Kharkiv, fierce fighting continues to ruthlessly destroy Ukrainian tanks near Kupiansk. Today, for example, 64 enemy resources in Ukraine were burned directly on board, and Deepfake reported what was going on. The level of bombing in the north has not been seen for a long time. The Ukrainians wrote that the goal of the Russian army was to capture Korpinskaya and prepare to attack Kharkiv. At the same time, the general staff does not know where the Russians will come from north or from Belgorod. Russian Deputy Defense Minister Timur Vonov has been detained on suspicion of taking bribes. The arrest was prepared by FSB officials of the Commission of Inquiry. This morning, Moscow's Basmany court sent Timur Ivanov to a pre-trial detention center. According to the TASS news agency, we're talking about Lefortovo. According to the court's decision, Ivanov was chosen as a preventive measure in the form of detention for 2 months until June 23rd. Sergei Borodin was arrested along with the deputy minister, who, according to the investigation, was arrested, colluding with 3 people to accept bribes. Along with the deputy minister of defense, 3 defendants appeared in a criminal case this afternoon on charges of bribery. Timur Ivanov has been Deputy Minister of Defense since 2016. Before that, he served as the General Manager of Oboronstroy for 3 years. He also served as Vice Chairman of the Moscow Regional Government and a fuel and energy complex enterprise. President Putin was informed of the Deputy Minister's arrest, and Shoigu was informed in advance. President's Press Secretary Peskov said today, "Everything you know." So far, for example, in this context, Britain's Solonok has convinced NATO allies that they should all spend 2.5% of their funds on defense. Otherwise, they say they will not be able to defend against the Russians. The world is more dangerous now than at any time since the Cold War, Sopnok, who arrived in Germany, said in Poland the day before, handing out donuts to the media, announcing that Britain has officially entered the military track. That's all. Must come. German Chancellor Scholz Rishi praised Berlin's decision to increase Olaf's defense spending. Nonetheless, he once again refused to transfer the Taurus long-range missile to Kiev, but many in Germany demanded it. In particular, Maria Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, chairman of the Bundestag's Defense Committee, called for the immediate supply of Taurus to Ukraine, as well as air defense systems and artillery ammunition. Americans, Talia said, why are the Germans worse? At the same time, Germany's already deficit budget revenue is rapidly declining in Germany. Recession. The INSEE Institute conducted a new poll for laundry and found that an incredible 1 in 3 burghers distrust the so-called traffic light coalition, that is, the entire German government, the cabinet and Chancellor Scholz himself. But the question is who? The Germans entrusted the Chancellor. Now, if the election were held tomorrow and it was held directly, the answer would be even more terrible and rude. The answer is to no one. Well, that is to say, the Germans do not want to see not only midfielder Scholz-Berbut in power, but also the opposition, in particular as Merkel's successor to Friedrich Merz. In this context, the TV channel of the Central Bank of the Russian Federation is trying to promote the current defense minister Pistorius to the role of future prime minister. Journalists made an entire documentary about Boris's popularity in his hometown of Osnabrück, where he was mayor, and how historically they regularly attended football team games of the same name. In general, the German defense minister wanted to deploy a Bundeswehr brigade in Lithuania and proposed to return to Germany for compulsory military service, and was appointed as his boyfriend and a cool candidate from the people. By the way, this is on the pants. A large Russian community. Perhaps this story has not been liked by Russians and Germans for a long time. In this regard, he tried to launch 3 world wars because of his childhood injuries. But the United States has briefly stabilized Biden's approval rating, which Democrats have managed to stabilize. A new Morning Consult poll shows that even if the incumbent president is once again behind Trump in 6 of the 7 key swing states, he has poured tens of millions of dollars into the campaign. A very small 2% advantage. Joe has only Michigan, and Trump has a very clear gap in all but Pennsylvania, 4% in Wisconsin and 10% in North Carolina. Biden himself is helping his rival, whose dementia is progressing rapidly at a rally in Florida. He asked on stage, "How many times will Trump have to prove that we can't be trusted?" As it turns out, Freud and the president accidentally said his administration could not be trusted, but he didn't notice it. At the same time, after reservation, the old man Joe got lost on the stage again. All the Democrats have left is to drag Donald through the courts to deprive him of time to spend money on his campaign. But the Democratic administration's blue dream is, of course, to put Donald in jail. Trump has become the first former president in history to be involved in a criminal case, or may he become the first person to be thrown in prison. According to U.S. media reports, Secret Service officials with Shech-A not only protect the current head of state, but also protect the former president. They are already working on a plan in case Trump is sent to jail, from where Trump will campaign. American law does not exclude election or even conviction, even the one who's in jail now. If Donald is imprisoned, they wrote, it could be a logistical nightmare for Secret Service agents, and Trump will have to be held separately from other prisoners. Yes, Trump will have to watch 24/7, while Democrat Benny Thompson is trying to push a bill that would also strip Donald of intelligence protection. In this regard, lawyers believe that Trump's opponents are only seeking his death in this way.